in a quaint town of three sisters, Grace, Joy, and Hope, each embody distinct personalities that both complement and challenge one another. Grace, the eldest, is a poised and meticulous perfectionist, always striving for excellence and order in her life. The unplanned adventure. Grace was renowned for her meticulous planning. Her friends and colleagues often joked that she could probably organize chaos itself. Her calendars were color-coded, her files perfectly arranged, and her days scheduled down to the last minute. This careful attention to detail had propelled her to the top of her field in corporate consultancy. One Tuesday morning, Grace was called into her boss's office. A high-priority project needed immediate attention in a remote village in the countryside. The company had acquired an old estate there, which they planned to convert into a retreat center. However, the local authorities had thrown a wrench into the works, and Grace was the chosen troubleshooter. Arriving in the village, Grace immediately felt out of her element. The village, with its cobbled streets and quaint houses, was charming but lacked the amenities she was used to. Her hotel had no Wi-Fi, and her cell phone signal was patchy at best. The detailed itinerary she had prepared was rendered useless almost immediately. With no choice but to adapt, Grace had to rely on the local people for information and assistance. She met an elderly man named Thomas, who had lived in the village all his life. He offered to show her around and introduced her to the key figures in the community. Grace quickly realized that formal meetings and presentations were out of the question. Instead, she found herself having impromptu discussions over tea in people's homes. At first, Grace was frustrated by the lack of structure. Her attempts to adhere to her schedule were constantly thwarted by the village's slower pace of life. Yet, as the days passed, she began to appreciate the spontaneity. She learned to improvise, solving problems as they arose without the safety net of her usual meticulous planning. One evening, as Grace was finalizing some paperwork in her hotel room, Thomas knocked on her door. "Grace, you must come to the festival tonight," he said with a warm smile. "It's our annual harvest celebration, and it's an essential part of our community." Grace hesitated. Her planner was still full, and she was behind schedule. But Thomas's enthusiasm was infectious, and she reluctantly agreed, thinking it might help her understand the villagers better. The festival was a revelation. Held in the village square, it was a vibrant tapestry of colors, sounds, and scents. Lanterns hung from trees, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Tables were laden with homemade dishes, and the air was filled with the tantalizing aroma of freshly baked bread and roasted meats. Children ran around laughing, while adults engaged in animated conversations. As Grace walked through the crowd, she noticed how everyone was exchanging greetings and stories. She was introduced to families who had lived in the village for generations, each with their own traditions and tales. The sense of community was palpable. Grace was invited to join a group of women preparing a traditional dish. She rolled up her sleeves and, for the first time in years, cooked without following a strict recipe. The women chatted about their lives, their joys, and their struggles. Grace listened, realizing how deeply connected they were to each other and to their land. Later, there was music and dancing. A local band played folk tunes, and villagers of all ages joined in the dances. Thomas encouraged Grace to dance, and though she was initially self-conscious, she eventually let go of her reservations. She found herself laughing and enjoying the moment, swept up in the rhythm and the joy of the celebration. As the night progressed, Grace sat by a bonfire, talking with Thomas and others about their hopes for the future. She was struck by their resilience and their ability to find happiness despite the challenges they faced. They spoke of their dreams for the retreat center and how it would bring new opportunities for their children. The festival continued late into the night, but Grace stayed until the end, absorbing the warmth and camaraderie around her. When she finally returned to her hotel room, she felt a profound sense of connection and a newfound appreciation for the village's way of life. By the end of her assignment, Grace had successfully navigated the bureaucratic hurdles and built strong relationships with the local authorities and villagers. She returned to the city transformed, her perspective broadened. Grace still valued planning, but she also embraced the beauty of the unexpected. She learned that sometimes the best experiences and solutions come from letting go of control and being open to what life brings. The festival had shown her the importance of community, spontaneity, and the joy that comes from living in the moment.